For today and at campus is Bea. Bea is, it's been a long journey, hasn't it, Bea? But I think you're ready now. These are her words. She says, I would like to thank God for his support, my mom for inspiring me to take this topic, my advisor, Miss Denise, for all our fun discussions and answering my silly questions, all the teachers for your guidance. Most importantly, I would like to thank Mr. Wade and Miss Maymay for being patient with me through those restless nights waiting for me to submit my final draft. Yeah, we've been waiting. Okay, her title is Let Her Cook. Tradwives are not a recipe for disaster. Give me a minute to set up the timer myself, and I'll tell you when you can start. All right, you can start when ready.
Hi, it's been a while. How's your career going? Buried under emails and back-to-back meetings, you say? Well, I could never. I spend my mornings in the kitchen baking bread and my afternoons with my children. What was that? You think I am being oppressed? You think that I am being pushed back to the 1950s? You think that I need to be liberated from my own home? Well, you just don't understand. This is a day in the life of a tradwife. Of course, what you don't see is what lies beyond these misconceptions. You don't see how hard it is to force their eyes open to prepare breakfast before sunrise. Their back aching from sweeping the floor. The rush in the morning to rush the kids out the door, making sure they arrived in school on time. And it doesn't just stop there. It's 12. Prepare lunch. And wash the dishes while you're at it. Before you know it, the kids are home. Tantrums, helping with homework. And this is an endless cycle, every single day. To understand why the tradwife lifestyle sparks such strong criticism, we need to look at the history that brought us here. In early human civilizations, survival shaped the division between labor between men and women. Women carried the biological responsibility of bearing and nurturing children, which often bounded them close to home, while men took on roles that brought them more mobility and visibility, which tends to receive greater recognition as social prestige. And as men's contributions were more acknowledged, they accumulated power and authority, while women's labor was often seen as a routine taken for granted. Over time, this imbalance caused domestic work to be undervalued and contributed to the perception of women as second-class citizens. This belief that women were secondary continued as the norm across later civilizations, including ancient Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. History did not just leave this perception behind. It was carried into the Industrial Revolution, where labor became increasingly defined by wages and public productivity, setting the stage for the rise of the first wave of feminism. While 61% of adults agree that the shift in gender norms have helped women's success, 44% still feel that society does not accept women for non-traditional roles. The irony is clear. The modern woman is pressured to work as if she has no career and to parent as if she has no work. It's no surprise then that the tradwife aesthetic has exploded all over TikTok. It is a desperate plea for balance in this exhausted world. Before we dive deeper into this discussion, I would like to define some terms. Feminism is the belief that everyone, regardless of their gender, should have equal rights and opportunities. This is grounded in the principle of equality. Within the feminist circle, a tradwife, a woman who voluntarily embraces traditional domestic roles centered on homemaking, marriage, motherhood, and conventional femininity, sparks controversies claiming that it pushes feminism backwards, which force women into roles against their will. Today, the Tradwife role is often perceived as outdated or demeaning. The tension between pursuing a career and embracing homemaking remains a significant social structure, influencing both women's self-worth and society's definition of success. The central issue is whether society validates marriage and homemaking as a legitimate lifestyle or exclusively pressures women towards independence and careers. Although trends indicate increasing female participation in the workforce, homemaking remains a deliberate and meaningful choice for some. The key issue is that Tradwives are not pushing feminism backwards and should not be condemned by feminists for three main reasons. One, it is actually the progress of feminism that enables women freedom to choose this lifestyle. Second, the choice of the Tradwife lifestyle today represents a form of functionalism. And third, Tradwife today is a solid representation of Proverbs 31 women, a woman the Bible speaks highly of. To begin with, the Tradwife movement is not a disaster because it is actually the progress of feminism that enables women to pursue the Tradwife lifestyle. The primary and most important reason is that, through feminism, women has the right to choose this lifestyle rather than being forced into it. Through the 19th Amendment, the Equal Franchise Act, and the Title IX in the USA, women has received access to many opportunities. We can vote, control our bodies, and pursue an education. A right is like a paintbrush. You can use it to paint commercial towers or a family portrait. And to tell a woman that she only can paint the tower is a form of another social pressure. When a woman uses her feminist autonomy to be a full-time Tradwife, she is not feeling feminism. She is manifesting it. Therefore, condemnation in the feminist circle under the impression that Tradwives is pushing feminism backwards is contradictory. Second, the difference between the 1950s housewives and the modern Tradwife is not in the apron. It is the intent that is driven by choice. Historically, women have been forced into home by legal and financial barriers called the coverture. For those women, domestic life functioned in a loop, designed to limit women's autonomy. When our actions is controlled by fear or lack of options, our well-being suffers. However, during the mid to late 19th century, the Married Women Property Acts was reinforced to dismantle coverture. Today, it is a choice that is properly weighed out. Many women look at the corrupted labor world and decided that their values are better served at home. According to self-determination theory, a human well-being relies on three things: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. In this case, when a woman chooses to step away from the workforce, she is reclaiming that autonomy. She's exercising every right feminine want to secure. So, it is not the cooking and cleaning that causes this distress. The difference between a life that diminishes you and a life that fulfills you isn't the labor. It lies on the fact whether or not the labor is forced or done by choice. Next, social regression is a practical impossibility in this current era. Critics fear that the Tradwife lifestyle will drag us back to a point where women didn't have rights. Unlike in the 1950s, women's rights are now embedded in international laws and protected by national policies. In Indonesia, for instance, we have provided legal protections against domestic violence. Globally, the UN Women and the CEDAW Convention has created frameworks. These legal protections that make the forced domesticity of the past impossible. Modern women chooses the home from a position of strength. The difference is she can leave if she wants. She has a voice, and to label her as regressive insults the legal system established to protect her. Following the previous argument, The modern tradwife is a demanding, vital role for social stability while leaving room for side jobs. First and foremost, tradwives are not considered second-class citizens because they play a pivotal role in society according to the structural functionalist theory. This framework views society as a whole unit made up of interrelated parts. As a result, each of these various parts, when played out appropriately, contributes to societal equilibrium. We must trace back to the family. The family is the smallest and one of the fundamental building blocks of society. Talcott Parsons have emphasized the importance of a strict gendered division of labor to ensure a stable, thriving society. While men perform the instrumental role of providing an income and acting as a breadwinner, women take charge of the expressive role, focusing on childcare, emotional support, nurturing members within the family. Considering that a mother's nature is extremely foundational to a human development, tradwives are already actively contributing to human flourishing. Secondly, being a tradwife is a full-time job. It is not a walk in the park. For a second, position yourselves as a mother of three again. Dishes piled up on the sink, toys cluttered on the floor, baskets and baskets of dirty laundry, and the day has yet to begin. Dismissing domesticity as a form of a demeaning role completely ignores how highly skilled and grueling this role truly is. The reality goes far beyond the physical chores. The heaviest burden is the continuous, invisible cognitive labor which runs 24/7 and drives psychological exhaustion. This mental load is rooted in the cultural expectation of intensive mothering, an ideology that pressures women to act as the selfless, primary caretakers of child development while constantly sacrificing their own needs. This restlessness is a byproduct of balancing these non-stop domestic expectations, proving that degrading this demanding role completely ignores the sheer competence and resilience required to sustain it. Another important point is that working in the home does not keep tradwives from exploring ways to support their family financially. Building onto the foundation that freedom of choice is granted by feminism, the modern tradwife engages with public economically entirely at her own terms. Approximately, more than half of stay-at-home mothers actively participate in independent home-based labor, generating over $4.5 billion in freelance and digital income during 2025 alone. This flexible, self-paced labor allows women to pull market opportunities into their own home, remaining in the private sphere while staying economically active in the public market. This unique positioning bridges the gap between Talcott Parsons' traditional gender roles. She fulfills the expressive duties of nurturing and stabilization while executing a micro-level instrumental role through independent income generation. From a biblical perspective, the tradwife today is a solid representation of Proverbs 31 women, a noble women the Bible speaks highly of. First of all, the tradwife lifestyle takes on the noble role of homemaking, reflected from Proverbs 31 women. The Bible stated that true nobility is found in strength and not weakness. The text used strong military language to elevate the role of a homemaker. The phrase, wife of a noble character, relies on the Hebrew word hayil, which elsewhere describes elite armies and war heroes. This warrior imagery notes that the phrase girds her loins with strength is a metaphor for soldiers preparing for battle. The Bible frames homemaking not as a passive chore, but as a position of high military honor and resilience. Beyond this commitment of domesticity, the Proverbs 31 woman is also known for her excellence in economic management, completely shattering the stereotype of the domestic dependent homemaker. The text depicts an outstanding woman running a profitable business while keeping her home functionally smooth. This matches the reality of a tradwife, where she also juggles between homemaking and finance effectively. Lastly, the Proverbs 31 woman shows a homemaker who originates from her tangible impact and character, rather than appearance. The text emphasizes that beauty is temporary. The Proverbs 31 woman is the exact opposite of just a decorative trophy wife. She is praised strictly for her work ethic and the fruit of her hands. Domesticity depicts wisdom, confirming womanhood is more than just appearance. Now, let's address the counter-arguments. Critics often claim that tradwife movement regresses women's rights by romanticizing domestic dependency, arguing that exiting the workforce ignores decades of feminist progress. However, this critique relies on narrow, second-wave interpretation of liberation. When viewed through the lens of modern choice feminism, true empowerment is defined by agency to choose one's own path, whether that be a professional job or domesticity. Unlike the mid-20th century women restricted by legal barriers, today, tradwife deliberately chooses to step away from the public sphere. By utilizing her hard-won freedom to pursue a traditional lifestyle, she is not surrendering the rights, but she is exercising the autonomy to define her own value. Furthermore, the critic that traditional gender roles are inherently oppressive misinterprets the sociological concept of functionalism. The critic that traditional gender roles structure inherently promotes patriarchy. This fails to recognize authority functions as a stabilizing force in an organized system. Just as citizens accept governmental laws, or employees adhere to corporate directives for the sake of efficiency, voluntary submission to a spouse is a strategic choice for maintaining harmony. By looking at this form of a from a functionalist perspective, the movement shows that clear leadership is a tool for building a stable society. Finally, concerns regarding economic vulnerability in the event of divorce ignores both modern legal safety nets of the household. Legal system today recognizes the non-monetary contributions of a homemaker, ensuring the equal distribution of marital assets. Many modern tradwives maintain financial relevance through remote, digital-based revenues, effectively eliminating the risk of career stagnation. From this thesis, we can conclude that the tradwife lifestyle does not push feminism backwards and should not be condemned by feminists, as feminism was never meant to confine women into a single definition of success. True liberation lies in allowing women to choose their lives based on what they find most fulfilling. Domestic labor is not inherently degrading, nor does choosing homemaking erases the dignity. Rather than mocking women who embraces traditional domestic gender roles, society should recognize their value, discipline, and influence embedded within their contributions. So, if a tradwife chooses this lifestyle, maybe the solution is simple. Let her cook. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bea. Our panelists today are Ms. Viola and Mr. Booty. We'll start with Mr. Booty.
Okay, good afternoon, Bea.
Good afternoon, Mr.
Thank you for your presentations. Yeah. So, I know that through these days, choosing to become a traditional wife is not an easy thing. From my experience, I mean, my wife was, I mean, is also a traditional wife. And I would like to ask you some of these questions. Okay. So your thesis connects modern Tradwives with the Proverbs 31. So in Proverbs 31, the woman, it says that it buys property, it engages in trade, manages finances, and participates economically. So it resembles an entrepreneur more than a strictly traditional domestic wife. Um, does Proverbs 31 actually endorse domestic submissions, or does it depict an economically independent woman?
Thank you for your question, Mr. When looking at Proverbs 31, it doesn't promote a complete submission. And in this case, submission is not entirely under what a man is, or is not entirely agreeing and giving up everything to the man. So this promotes the freedom for them to choose and to do like businesses outside the home.
So it means that their status is above their husband, or what?
They're not above their husbands, because if we go back to like Genesis, the verse says that Eve was made out of like Adam's ribs, and in the Hebrew translation, it's actually his side instead of a part of his rib. So originally, the God created us as equal, and it was never anyone above of anybody. So it doesn't promote women like higher than men or men higher than women.
So it's not total submissions then.
No.
Okay, I'll hold it there. And you're also talking about, I mean, you know, when we are using Bible, okay, as religious arguments in broad social debate, how do you justify using biblical ideas as evidence in societal argument involving non-Christians? I mean, like, you know, if it's non-Christians, how does this apply then?
Okay, thank you for your question, Mr. As you can see, what is said in Proverbs 31, I don't think anybody is going to disagree that this woman is not a powerful woman, is not a strong woman. She takes care of her kids, she manages her household, but at the same time, she juggles that and work. She's everything that a woman could ever want to be.
I mean, if I'm a Muslim, let's say, non-Christian, and then let's say not Christian, and then I demand my wife also to work also in this case. My religion, let's say not mentioning any religions, you know, beside Christians, let's say, and it say that my wife supposed to also work in this case and not become a traditional wife. So how do you respond to that? I mean, you put your basis on Proverbs 31, which is a Bible, right? How do you convince others, which is not?
Oh, sorry. So your question is, what if their religion teaches that women should not work, or they should work?
They should work
They should work instead of.
instead of become a trad wife.
Okay. So according to my thesis, in the functionalist theory, it shows that women, a mother's role is naturally nurturing. So, yes, I'm not saying that a woman is confined by this, but they should fulfill this role before they could go outside this functions.
Okay, you're mentioning about functionalist theory.
Okay.
Could you explain further about the functionalist theory, just a simple things, and why you choose this instead of, you know, this thing, because this is heavily criticized in modern sociology. It says that it's outdated because it assumes binary gender roles. It prioritizes social stability over equality and historically justify inequality. I mean, why you choose this functionalist theory?
Okay. I choose this theory. It's because from your explanation of why it is irrelevant in today's day, it's because it promotes social equality instead of, sorry.
Social stability over equality.
And that, I think, that is a part where I don't agree with, that it doesn't promote equality. And which is, I think it's still relevant today. Why it doesn't promote social, why does it not like degrade like the social equality is because in this case, yes, people might say that this is framing it as in patriarchy. But it's important to note that patriarchy is not entirely bad. Patriarchy doesn't have a bad connotation to this. Like this is just a man ruling like the society. And as I've mentioned before, that everyone at a point of their life would also be under like a certain leadership. And which is why, then again, feminism is it's like fighting for the progress, right? And based on this theory, for society to progress, then it has to like start from the family. And this is why like the structural functionalist theory is aligned with like what feminism says. It's like for the progress of society.
Okay, you mentioning about patriarchy, right? But at the first, your answer is like, you know, talking about submissions and those kind of things, and you say that we are created equal. Isn't it like contradicting?
Patriarchy doesn't mean that we are not equal as men and women. Because in this case, God created men and created women to be their helpers. And we couldn't say that this is not equal because since women are like the helpers, then the helper should be stronger than the one who needs help. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you, Bea.
All right, let's move to Viola. Miss Viola.
Hi, Bea.
I miss.
Yeah. Thank you for being courageous to choose this topic and also to take this POV. Like, yeah, that's what be a challenging issues that's very trending and relatable nowadays. But at least, hopefully, the message are clear that after this thesis, the husband will hack their wife. Yeah. Okay, so before we continue further to our discussion, I would like to ask you a clarification question first, Bea. In your opinion, what define traditional and modern?
Thank you for your question, Miss. In my opinion, wait, is this in like terms of wives?
In this context of gender roles, what define modern and traditional?
Okay, in my opinion, what defines traditional is back again to how we were created in the first place, and that is the Bible and how they define that what this is what a man's role is supposed to be, and this is what a woman's role is supposed to be. And the difference between the traditional and the modern now is that the roles has shifted through centuries. It has shifted that it requires women to like in the most extreme, it requires women to be a higher position than men. And this is something that I don't agree with.
Okay. So in your understanding, modern would say woman has a higher or more superior positions than a man?
In
Is
the
that-
extreme, yes.
Okay. Yeah, actually, that's why probably we need to clarify what. So we know that this third wife movement is coming from the booming again from the social media trending nowadays, right? Where the influencers are romanticizing these traditional models, right? However, that's why reading through your paper, I'm kind of like confused when you are using a term of modern Tradwife. How could this be possible? Because like in feminism, in understanding of the gender roles, traditional means that back then it has a clear distinction between what a roles of a man and woman should be. While the modern view of the gender roles might see that we promote, we advocate for more individual freedom, more equality, and so on. So how does it possible that we have this term called as a modern Tradwife? What do you think?
So in my thesis, I used modern to clarify that the Tradwife I mean is the Tradwife today, and instead of the Tradwife the back in the 1950s. Yes, that's why the modern is there.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Okay. Yeah, that's why. Because, like, if the Tradwife you propose, the so called modern Tradwives, are the one who can balance the domestic roles while still balancing their professional work. That's what your proposal, right? And then, is the term Tradwife itself now suitable or not? What's the difference with the modern wife role now then? If your proposal of the modern Tradwife is just like that, that's the same thing as the modern wife we understood so far.
The modern wife understood so far. And like, what's the difference between the Tradwife and the wife we know so far?
Yep.
Okay, so the Tradwife, in my definition, it says that she voluntarily chooses this lifestyle. And I use this definition from a couple of scholars to show that this is a choice and it's a valid choice for them to choose. And that's what makes a wife. Yes, they have the same roles, but I want to like point out that the Tradwives, this is a choice that they make.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I mean by the modern view of gender roles are already there. You know, like the modern view of gender roles already see the appreciation of individual freedom, choosings of paths. So I don't think that modern Tradwife is something new. I mean, like it's there in the modern view. But since you are mentioning about autonomy, the next questions would be, what do you think? Is there any point where our freedom of choice is actually free from social or cultural expectation?
I think that choice is like one thing or another. And it's like you going to a cafe. It's either you order coffee or maybe matcha. And yes, it is bounded in social views on how things are, but their choice is still a choice. And them choosing a Tradwife is one of a valid choice.
Yeah, I get it. That choosing to be a Tradwife is a valid choice, but you're saying that these choices is their autonomous choice. Let's we give space for them their freedom of choices. But is it true that there is this such things as freedom of choice, autonomously choose something that is actually free of social expectation, free of social pressure?
So whether or not their choices are going to be influenced by
The social or cultural expectation, yes.
Okay, so yes, I think that our choices, one way or another, would have like society like seeing it in different perspective. But back again, I think a choice is still a choice, and I think it's supposed to be a respected choice, whatever she chooses.
Yeah. So the questions why I'm asking about that is that what guarantee this promotions of Tradwife movement, like what you say, it's a progression instead of regressions. How sure are you that our support to this movement will not have the impact, the regress impact? I mean, like, let's say you are telling a young girl that your nature is to be a wife and to be a mother, let's say. It's actually a natural, a noble one, the one you said, the noble character. How can we know that this Tradwife is completely free of choice and not a product of social pressure? Like a mom telling the daughter about these nobles' expectations. The daughter has that in their belief and understanding already. So when the daughter chooses to be this Tradwife, so-called, are you sure that it's a freedom of choice? Are you sure that it's not because of the societal pressure that already being planted there when they are young?
Okay, thank you for your question, Miss. I think, back again what I said, I think that one way or another, we are, we're gonna be like, the teachings are gonna be there. like us in this school right now, we have the teachings that whatever the Bible says, and it will influence us what we choose in the end. But back again, whatever you choose in the end, it's still your choice.
Yeah. So you are saying that our choice is influenced by the teachings around
Yes,
us, right?
yes.
Yeah. Therefore, can this movement still be considered as feminism progressions, like what you argue, if it actually normalized the same core of social expectation that was once historically limiting the woman's political, economic, and personal autonomy? What if these promotions, if we support, it will reinforce the same gender norms and feminism originally want to eradicate back then?
So what guarantees that if this teachings is like passed on, that it wouldn't lead us back to social regression? As I've mentioned before, in my structural functionalist theory and feminism, these both promotes a progression of society, and we are also now by enforcing this way of living, we are also supported by laws that, as I've mentioned before, in Indonesia and international laws. And I've researched about it that international and national law about this like goes hand in hand. And so that if the country is not going to support women's rights, then the international laws would, like the UN Women and the CEDAW conventions, like I've mentioned before.
Okay, so you are having a trust in the law.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. Even if there is a law of the traffic light, the people still violate the law. Yeah. Hopefully. Okay. Next question would be: we know that this Tradwife movement are romanticizing by the influencer, the social media influencer. However, are the Tradwife influencer actually traditional? I mean, like, ironically, we know that they are not that traditional. They are paid for this content, right? So, isn't it contradict? I mean, like, isn't it contradict? Like, the influencer is actually, they are not the Tradwife that they are promoted. What do you think?
So based on my research, I found that many wives today or mothers working in the workplace are actually being, despite out of like the feminist progression, there are still workforces that condemn them, that still like don't give them equal rights with men. So they choose to opt out from this workforce and like chooses like the public and the private sphere instead. And once they're in the private sphere, most of them are also choosing to do like the work from home culture, including like freelance and content creating, most of them. So yes, maybe what they're doing is traditional, like the roles they're doing, like home taking, like caring for the home, nurturing their children. Yes, it is based on the traditional gender roles, but their access to the public sphere is not it's not a traditional thing where, and it's not gonna make us think that going back to where they don't have rights to the outside world.
Yeah, okay. I mean, like, these influencers are actually not the Tradwife, right? So don't you see the harm behind their campaign, because it can give an, you know, like an unrealistic expectation from the woman who see, oh, that should be the perfect wife look like. Don't you think that what they promote is actually unrealistic expectations? That like being a traditional wife, like Mr. Budi's wife, is already hard by itself. Being a working mom like me is already hard by itself. Now we have this hybrid idea that combine both. Wow, what an expectation of a wife should look like. Yeah, don't you see that it's actually a harmful campaign nowadays?
A harmful campaign to romanticize the 1950s. Yes, I completely agree that romanticizing this 1950s like culture, like this cottage core, is a bad thing, because what we see on social media is a curated version of what a tradwife is. And this is why I brought up in my thesis that this is not an easy job, and you shouldn't look at this in like a rose-tinted glasses where they're like they woke up and like the sun is like pouring from their windowsill and like cooking, and it's not all that, and they have like their own burdens to deal with.
Okay.
Okay, time is actually up.
Thank you, Bea.
We're done. Good job, Bea. Okay, so we will meet friends and family, panelists, advisor over here for photos, and then we will have a break until Thursday, where we'll have our